Now, before we continue using that token we store in our Redux store, you might remember that when we do sign in and we inspect the data we get back, so let me quickly do this, switch to sign in. There we also get this expires in value. So the token is only valid for 60 minutes. After that, whenever we send it to any resource which requires a token, the request will fail as if we had sent no token at all. Now, this is not the best user experience. We probably want to actively lock the user out after this hour. As a side note, if the user reloads the application, the state is lost anyway, because that clears the Redux store since the entire application reloads. So there we can then change the UI anyways, which we'll do in the future, to show that we're not logged in. But it is the state that we are logged in and don't reload the page for an hour, where we can get in this strange spot of having a token which is not valid anymore without us seeing that. For that reason, what I want to do is I want to add some code to invalidate that token after 1 hour so that we then can also update our UI once the token is no longer there. To do that, I'll go into my auth actions file and I'll add a new constant, a new function essentially, which I'll name check auth timeout. There I expect to get the expiration time, and in there I will return this function where I get dispatch as an argument because I want to run some async code. I will dispatch this check auth timeout action when we get back a success response. So where I'll also dispatch auth success, I'll also dispatch check auth timeout, and I will pass on response data, and there it's this expires in property you saw. Expires in. You can quickly see that if we log in again, switch to sign in, I'm talking about this property, expires in. That holds a value, a number, or to be precise, a string, but which can be parsed as a number. And I get this here. There, I now want to call set timeout and execute a function after a certain amount of time. And you can probably guess which amount of time, the expiration time here. Now here in set timeout, I want to do something. And I simply want to call logout. This is a new action I need anyway. So I'll export a constant which I'll name logout here. Will be an action which doesn't take any input. Will be a synchronous action creator. I'll set the type to a type I have yet to create. So let's create it now. In action types, I'll export a constant of logout with the identifier of logout. And now with that, I can dispatch this action. So here the type will be action types of logout. And this logout action, this action creator here, will also be used in set timeout of check auth timeout. So here I will call dispatch after the expiration time to call the logout action like this. Always execute these functions, because that then returns the action which is actually dispatched. So now with that we execute or we dispatch the logout function after that time span, and that allows me to now go into my reducer and there handle the logout case. So I'll add a new function in there which I'll name of logout. I get state and action here, and in the function I'll return an updated JavaScript object, and that updated JavaScript object here will of course be created with update object, is my old state where I set the token to null and the user ID to null, so that I'm essentially logged out because all that core information that made up a logged in user is now lost again. And I need to handle that of course here, case action types of logout. There I want to return the result of the of logout function where I pass state and action as arguments. And with that, we got this timer in place in our action creators file in check auth timeout, which will fire after whatever Firebase returns us, and which will then ensure that the user is logged out. Now for now, this will clear the store and not do much else. It won't show any visual feedback, but we will implement something to happen when the user logs out, including when he deliberately logs out, to give the user a clue that he's not logged in anymore. For now, let's see if that dispatching all works. Switch to sign in and submit. Let's have a look at Redux. There, I'm actually immediately logged out. So somehow this fired a bit too early. The reason, of course, is expiration time is 3600, but set timeout expects to get milliseconds. So it was only 3.6 seconds. It's a good practice. Now we can at least see that auth logout is dispatched and that it did clear the tokens and the user ID. But of course, I want to multiply this value with 1000 to turn my milliseconds to real seconds. So now it should be 1 hour. Now if I save this and do this exercise again, log in, switch to sign in. Now we shouldn't see auth logout, because now, well, we could wait for an hour. I'm not going to do that here. Feel free to do so, of course. We can now continue and now finally take advantage of our token to protect some of the resources on our backend in the first place, then still reach them, and then of course also update our UI to, for example, add a logout button to allow the user to log out and stuff like that. So these will be the next steps I'll work on. Let's do that in the next lectures.